Hey guys, first off I want to apologise for not posting a video in a while. I've been busy with uni, work, illness and thinking out bad excuses. So this video is going to encompass two of our previous topics. Last week's one about what you're reading and writing, and one of the previous ones about quotes. I'll start off with quotes. I remember Denise saying in her video that a lot of her favourite quotes focused on sort of idealistic beauty of the world, maybe optimism, that kind of thing. And I think sort of on the contrary, my favourite quotes focus on more reality. The first quote that I have chosen is a quote about death, and it's by Oscar Wilde. Death must be so beautiful, to lie in the soft brown earth with the grasses waving above one's head and listen to silence, to have no yesterday and no tomorrow, to forget time, to forget life, to be at peace. And I just think it's kind of beautiful, if perhaps morbid. Another of my favourite quotes is from John Green's Fault in Our Stars, and it's about love. So you're all probably familiar with it. I fell in love the way you fall asleep, slowly, then all at once. And one of the reasons I like that is just because it's just so true, really. Pretty much sums up that moment when it hits you that sort of this is working and I really like being with this person. Doesn't really matter where you are or what you're doing, it's just a sort of sudden, oh. And, getting all romantic. I've also been looking through this book, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, to try and pick out some of my favourite quotes from that, which is really difficult because it's such a good book. But this is one of my favourite quotes from that. She stops, there beneath the blanket, a tiny head covered in a blue cap. She checks her clipboard. She stops, there, beneath the blanket, a tiny head covered in a blue cap. She checks her clipboard again, then points. Your father breathes heavily, nods his head. For a moment, his face seems to crumble, like a bridge collapsing into a river. Then he smiles. Hey. Which just, oh, you know? And finally, the last quote, going back to the theme of death, is the final line from, dare I say it, Seamus Heaney's poem, Midterm Break. I'm not going to bother reading it out, but I would go and read that if I was you. The last line just sort of really hits home the tragedy of the situation, and I'm sure if you read the poem that would come across a lot more than me simply telling you. So moving on to this week's, or last week's topic, which was something you're writing or reading at the moment. At the moment, the thing I'm mainly reading, aside from books for uni, is Matt's novel, The Sanctuary, which he's about halfway through writing, and I get the privilege to be one of the first few people to read it. It's a very cool book. It's about Vincent Whitecastle, a character I'm sure has been mentioned before, and his band of assassins. It's set in a very sort of futuristic setting. It's really interesting how the characters interact in a sort of almost like Sherlock and Moriarty, or Light and Elle from Death Note, if you're familiar with that. But it's something that I'm really psyched to be reading, and always makes me smile to get a new chapter. However, I'm going to talk about, in slightly more detail, something I am writing. I don't claim to be a writer at all, because I think saying that would probably be an insult to those who do write. And I am writing, I want to say fan fiction, wouldn't call it a novel, about a D&D campaign that me, Matt, and my friend Duncan used to run, where Matt and I were supervillains. I'm going to read you the first page, few paragraphs, lines of that. I sobbed silently, my face awash with tears, and my mind flickering painfully through the events of the night. The shutter-speed reality of what I had done was dawning fast. I thought back to things so horrific and disturbing that I never would have dreamed them possible of myself. The rain echoed my tears, a pretentious, pathetic fallacy for my admittedly not unjust inner turmoil. I felt disgusted. To be honest, I was surprised that this hadn't come earlier, that I hadn't broken out of the persona of this strange and violent new character during the more stressful moments of the evening. I was no stranger to acting, however. 5 years of drama school, and the mental trauma caused by watching my mother blow her brains over the walls of her stylish yet affordable home office, had given me perfect experience in adapting myself. But this, it had never gone this far before. Of everything that happened in the last few years, all the petty theft and split personalities, I had never allowed myself to be so taken over by, dare I say it, evil. A scarily liberating evil, one that purged any worries of morality or reality of the world from my mind. I dry my eyes, stare intently at my reflection in the nearby mirror, and spontaneously break out into an eerie and maniacal grin. My name is Holly J. Wood, and tonight I murdered a child. Well, 2 children to be exact, their mother too, and the worst part? It thrilled me. Right to my very core, every fibre of my essence was aroused with a new lust to end life, and I felt inspired. He and I, we could take the world. However, no production can begin without the exposition, so without further ado, I shall start at the very beginning. A very good place to start, so I'm told. But be warned, children, this ain't no fairy tale. Ugh, 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 ugh.